So, Kristen, tell us, you not only love the name Kirby Puckett, tell us what you love about that baseball player, Kirby Puckett.
Well, I just love the athleticism displayed by Kirby Puckett. You know, I mean, and also, if I may, the physique.
That's right. Tall and lean, right?
He got a juicy booty.
You just Googled him.
No, I've never seen him before in my life, but I am going to make the assumption that he got a juicy booty.
He's built like a fire hydrant.
Hydrant. Some would say a spark plug. Kirby Puckett definitely had a juicy booty.
The Hollow Buddy. And we all feel hollow sometimes.
Greetings and salutations, bunnies. Filled bunnies. All of you listeners are bunnies that have a lot of filling. I'm Kristen Zeman, and I am here with my co-host, Sylvia Moyer. We are both former police chiefs, but the Hollow Bunny podcast is not just for cops. It is for anyone who has an interest in talking about life and leadership, and particularly the lessons that we've learned about both. And those lessons fill up the metaphorical Hollow Bunny. So Sylvia, tell us, who is our guest today on the Hollow Bunny Leadership Podcast?
Oh, Kristen Zeman, get ready, because we have Braden Bishop with us. Braden Bishop is a native Californian. He was raised in Northern California and distinguished himself in sports. I know we won't get specific about, well, we might say some stuff about sports, Kristen. So you got to
Sporty ball.
Hold tight, and she's going to call your uniform a costume, Braden. It's okay. So Braden Bishop distinguished himself when he went to UW and played baseball, and then he was selected by the Mariners, played in the Mariners organization, and has had an extraordinary career in baseball. And beyond that, he was struck by personal tragedy when his mother was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And Braden Bishop didn't just wallow in it, he took action. And we're going to talk about some of that. We're going to talk about the resilience it takes to be a professional athlete, how he kind of got through the anguish with his mom and then starting this for mom, and what that looks like and how it is really contributing to the greater good in the world. So, hey, listeners, and millions of you that are out there listening, you're going to have some nuggets that are going to show you that Braden Bishop has a very full bunny. He's a leader among leaders. And Bray, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys.
You bet. So, Bray, let's start with being a professional athlete and kind of the rigors of that. What is it that fills you to keep you intentional and working to perfect your craft? Kind of give our listeners an idea of where you are right now and what you do and kind of how you got there.
I mean, I think it all centers around my why. And I think the beauty of, and you hear it all the time, like one of my favorite speakers, Simon Sinek, he had like his famous TED talk about why, and he puts like all these diagrams on his board, and kind of like everything centers around your why. But I think the thing I've figured out through time and trial and error is my why changes based on like where I'm at in life. And I think that's totally okay.
Sure.
I think sometimes it could be scary for people, you know, because like I don't really know. I don't really have one. I'm 30 years old. I don't have a why. I don't think that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I think it evolves. And for me, it has, because when you go from a single guy to then have a girlfriend, to then have a wife, to then have a family, like your why is going to change. So I think for me early on in my career, my why was my mom. And like you mentioned, obviously some things happen with her medically, and it just kind of put everything in perspective for me, made me realize that there's a lot more happening outside the lines of a baseball field than there is on it. So it helped me put things in perspective, and I didn't take the game so serious. But that doesn't mean that my work wasn't any less intentional. It doesn't mean that I stopped doing what I had been doing to get myself to where I was at the time in Division I. And then I kind of went into getting married while also being a professional athlete. So now it's not just all about you, um, but you still have to find time to prioritize yourself and your career. And then that led into when my son was born in 2021, and that changed everything. Like, really made me realize that baseball was not that important, and life had way more to it, way more depth, and there was way more for me to discover there. And so I'd say, like, I mean, I've said in the past, perspective changed my career. Um, from my mom to marriage to then having a son. It's been, I think, that journey of discovering kind of what's important. And it doesn't have to be baseball, obviously. I think we all have our careers, but we also have so much more off the field. And I think the sooner you can find perspective in it all, it will provide clarity, when you do have to navigate the trials and the successes and stuff like that.
Oh, I love that. I want to pull something out that you said there, because I think people need to be reminded that we are an evolution and that our whys change, with every, coming year, the circa Braden, that started in baseball or was, coming up as, a young baseball player is so different than present day Braden. And, and our whys, they shift, the evolution of ourselves. I love that so much. I think people need to be reminded and given some grace about, that whole idea that we're chasing something, but then bringing things into perspective. When you talk about your mom, I mean, your voice changes. The passion, you can hear it. Can you take me back before you became who you are? Is baseball, has that always been since you were, little? Was that always the dream? Was it very purposeful, or did it, kind of the talent, found you, or did you seek the talent? How did that manifest in your life?
I think the beauty of my athletic career has been playing all sports. And then it started at an early age, whatever season it was, that's what sport I was playing. So it wasn't like I was just locked into baseball, which I think in turn made me a more complete athlete. So I always recommend that kids play all sports for as long as they can. So I played hockey, soccer, football, baseball, just basically basketball, everything. And I would say probably around maybe 12 years old, we moved from Vancouver, Canada, back to the Bay Area. And hockey's obviously huge in Canada, not so much in California. So the closest travel team, was in San Jose, which was about like a 50-minute drive. And then obviously California, Bay Area traffic, you add another like 30 minutes. And so that would have been like 3 or 4 times a week. And as a 12-year-old, I didn't want to do it. And I remember walking in the rink. We were late because of traffic. I had never met anybody on the team, and they're all on the ice. So I had a choice: go get dressed and go on the ice. And, it's pretty embarrassing as a 12-year-old, like showing up late and nobody knows who you are. And I remember sitting in the locker room with my dad, and I was like, I don't want to do this. And he was like, okay, well, if you don't go on the ice, like, you're done playing hockey. And I remember saying, okay, I don't want to. And I made that decision out of pure fear. Like, I did not want to be embarrassed. Like, I just want to get out of there. And, it ended up working out. Like, I made it to the major leagues, but I regret that moment because I really do think that hockey was my best sport.
Oh,
And I really, really
no.
enjoyed it too. So I definitely regret that moment. I always held out hope that I could go play with my last remaining year of eligibility in college, but I don't know what colleges are taking a 30-year-old who last played hockey when he was 12. So so that kind of was the fork in the road that drove me to baseball.
So let me ask, I'm so sorry. I have to ask. So then would you and now that you're a parent, and this is, I have
Yes.
4 kids, and
Hold it,
I can
Fred.
I can tell you how many times where I was like, you get your little butt in there.
Yeah.
Like my son did not want to wrestle, and we signed him up, and so now that you're a parent, and let's say that same scenario presents itself, and your kid is standing there like, I don't know, I don't want to do it. What would you do with that information that you now have, in your database? Would you push it, or would you just go, hey, because you could argue that honestly, that was a pivotal moment. I mean, it wasn't planned, but by you not walking onto that rink, your trajectory changed. And honestly, it ended up pretty okay, but what if, like, what would you do in that moment as a parent?
That's such a good question.
We're
I'd
here for the
say,
hard questions, Braden.
yeah,
These are not softballs, sir.
no. um, I think looking back, I think my dad handled it right. But I also think, I mean, Sil knows my dad pretty well, and he's pretty impulsive. Like, he definitely lets the emotions drive his conversation. And so he was pissed. He just sat in traffic for however long, and he knew how good I was at it and how much I enjoyed it. And so it was like more of like okay, if you leave, then you're done. Like, you're never doing it again. And I made the decision out of fear, obviously, but I think if it were my son, I probably would not maybe use such a scare tactic. Love you, Dad, but I would probably, just try and have a conversation like, hey, if you leave, it's going to be really hard for you to get back in it. I know you really enjoy it, and maybe like, why do you want to leave? And then, because I remember that moment, I would have said, well, I'm embarrassed. I don't want to go on the ice and everybody see me. So that's probably how I would approach that and make it more of a teaching moment.
As someone who has been around sporty ball his whole life,
Uh-huh.
and I've got my own kids. I've got a 10-year-old son, an 8-year-old daughter. Our rule is before the season starts, you can decide not to play the sport. But if you start, you're finishing the season. Now, in your dad's defense, you never actually started that hockey season, so I think he's okay. I think he passes my test.
You will find you did.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the parental rule, right? And that was a moment for you, Bray, that really there was some finality. If you do this, you will never again. And there's a real leadership lesson there about nudging folks, having, your dad let you speak your truth. Yes, it was a decision made in fear, but might there have been just a pause with an interaction with an off ramp, a safe place, and then a real on ramp that may have just changed, your life. I don't know. I think there's a real leadership lesson there. Do you see that as something that you would reflect on and really serve to fill you, where you would be a different guide for someone else, whether it's your son or someone else similarly situated?
Absolutely. I mean, my son's a little too young to like have a conversation back, but I definitely, that's whenever it does get to that point. Like, I obviously know I have a lot of wisdom to share, and I've been through a lot in my life, as we all have. And I'm sure, whatever he goes through, I probably would have been through. So when it comes to those moments, obviously I want to teach, I want to help and serve him and be his dad. But at the same time, like, he might just want me to listen. And so
Sure.
for me to have like the awareness of, and obviously this doesn't just go in like father son relationship. This can go in like boss employee. This can go in coach player. But to just have the awareness to be like, hey, do you want me to give you advice, or do you want me to just listen?
Yeah.
And like, that just totally changes the dynamic. I haven't used it with my son yet, but I've used it in other, with my brother Hunter, since, he's younger than me. So, and he's been through everything, the Pac-12, getting drafted, minor leagues. And so to like start the conversation off like that, like, it definitely would let him know that it's not about me, it's about you. And I
Yeah.
think it totally changes the dynamic of a conversation or an interaction.
And you said something in there that is such a leadership moment that you've really pulled out of there, is if perhaps you would have been given the opportunity, or if your dad would have pressed as to why don't you want to go onto that, into that rink, right? And so many times fear presents itself as, as defiance, or, in even anger. And, I can remember so many times as the police chief where I said, I would rather you walk into my office, angry, because we can work with that, because it means that you feel something, you care, versus someone who is apathetic. But taking the time to ask the question and to kind of peel those layers away is that you weren't being defiant. No, I'm not going on the rink. You were genuinely scared. And that's what most of us face, is that, fear of ridicule, right? And that was presented in that moment as a 12-year-old, right? And so such a leadership lesson to take the time and ask the questions and try to determine what the origin of the emotion is.
Yeah. And what's so compelling? I mean, knowing your dad and your family, they go to the end of the earth for each other, right? And so what's so interesting is so many of us have those moments where you're like, I'm completely mortified. I just want to throw my sucker in the dirt, stomp off the playground, get out of here. And there are moments like that in every arena in which we operate. I do want to shift in this moment and kind of tug on this other thing with you, Bray. Watching you play baseball as an observer, one thing that's remarkable, you connect with the umpires. You connect with them every single game, and I've watched this year after year. And to me, it's not an ass kissing connection. It is, hey, we are all out here on this field together. You're doing your job, I'm doing mine. What is that about for you? Am I missing kind of the reasoning for that?
No, I mean, definitely not ass kissing for sure. I mean, even if I did, the times I've tried, it didn't help, so I stopped that
Sure,
long ago. But
sure.
um, umpires especially in the minor leagues, they have an even tougher journey than we do because, I mean, obviously we have way more spots. We have 9 on a field. They got 4, and umpires can umpire until they're 70 years old if they want.
Hmm.
So there's not a lot of turnover. They when we go to a city and play in the minor leagues, we're at that city 70 games of the year, and then 70 games on the road. Umpires are on the road 140 games. They don't have a home. They have a crew of 2 or 3, sometimes 4. They have a minivan and they drive.
What?
Yeah, they don't have a home, so um,
Wow.
and this is obviously, like, again, it takes awareness to not just say, like, F those guys, I don't want
Sure.
to, but to understand that they're humans too, and a lot of them are married, and for the guys that have played a professional sport, being married is not exactly the easiest. So I
Yeah.
think just like humanizing them is really
That's what it looks
important.
like. That's
And
kind of
just
what it
like
looks like.
yeah, and I mean, I came up with a lot of them, guys
Yeah.
who came in to the lower levels when I got drafted, to when I got to the upper levels. Some of them got to the upper levels as well. So it's kind of cool to, like, celebrate their success. And obviously, the better they think of you, that word spreads. So then hopefully they take care of you.
Yeah. Yeah, you certainly, it looks very connective, and just as you said, it doesn't it seems like you have a character that's revealed and demonstrated in how you carry yourself, right? And so you can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't influence for good and use that talent to really make your environment better, is not much of a point, right? I mean, that's on a baseball field, in a boardroom, in a roll call briefing room, or wherever you are. I also do want to kind of talk about this thing, that there's this really interesting thing. There's a hierarchy in professional sports, right? And there's the different levels. There's a hierarchy in policing and in organizations. How have you found to compete for a position without competing with an individual? And what I mean by that is, there's only one center fielder on the field at a time. Uh, in policing, we have folks that test for promotion, and you want to compete to be the person that is chosen without competing with the other person to put them down. If there's only so many spots, how do you speak to competing to gain the spot without degrading the other person that you're competing with?
So this is honestly my favorite topic to talk about because it's prevalent, like you said, everywhere there's
Yeah.
any sort of competition. And for some reason, I don't know where this started. Maybe it's just the nature of competition, but instead of looking inward and competing, you look outward and compete.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll speak to in team setting first. If the minute that you go outward and try and compete with a guy across from you in a negative way, you're making the team worse. And I'll explain why. So, like you said, there's one center fielder. Well, him doing well and me hoping he does bad doesn't help me at all. Him doing bad and me hoping he does bad doesn't help me either because now I have to perform. And so it took me a while to get to the point because I think human nature, you get intimidated. You know, like, hey, that guy might have this skill that I don't. He might be faster, stronger, hit the ball further. He's got more hype than I do. And in baseball, hype is everything. You know, how the media sees you. And so I remember in 2017, my career totally changed because I was like, I'm going to go all in on my teammates. Like, I don't owe them anything. They don't owe me anything, but I'm going all in on them.
Yeah.
I'm going to lift them up when they're struggling. I'm going to cheer for them when they're succeeding. And I found out within like 3 games that doing that changed my whole aura in the dugout. My energy changed. The coaches noticed. All my teammates noticed because now instead of me going from failing and then going in my shell and struggling and maybe throwing my bat or hitting the water cooler that you see these guys on TV, I would then go to the guy who maybe just hit a home run or just made a nice catch the inning before and be like, hey man, that was incredible, that was huge for us, like whatever. So it totally took my attention from me, put it on them. One, made me feel better, then two, showed them that I actually cared, I was actually paying attention to what
Huh.
they were doing. And then as the season went on, I felt guys like really cheering for me. And so, like, going back to kind of this competition thing, like, I think the sooner you can put the ego and pride aside and actually genuinely cheer for the man or woman that is competing with you for that spot, one, it's going to make them better. And then two, it's going to make you better. And I mean, both of you have been in leadership positions where I'm sure you've seen it plain as day, but that person who's just toxic, like, you don't want to be around them. And I think that is the toxicity of the negativity of competition. Nobody wants to be around it. Like, we want competition, but still, you succeeding has no bearing on me succeeding. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
if you fail, I still got to perform. If you succeed, I still got to perform. So you might as well succeed together. And that's the way that I view it.
Man, you've just described, a high performing team, and the whole concept, in that the success of a team is not, it's collective, it's not about you. And, you mentioned, the toxicity, and, you can have as much competency or talent, right? That toxic person could be a great player on the field, and that's great. But at the end of the day, they're performing, for them, for ego, and if they're not helping anyone along the way, it really does hold the team back. And we see that in organizations, and and this is where that overlap for me with sports comes into teams. And it's something that I have such a deep a wanting to learn and understand more high performance teams. And man, I tell you, it doesn't matter whether it's a boardroom or whether it's on the baseball field, it all is the same, right?
Literally all the same.
Yeah. So let's make a little shift here, Braden Bishop, and really talk about your mom, Suzy, and how that tragedy kind of came up when you were at UW and what you did with it. And I love the hat. Let's take care of each other. And For Mom is a remarkable organization that you started out of what I understand is love and anguish for what your mom was experiencing. Can you enlighten us to that, its emergence, and then kind of where you are now, and then where you see For Mom headed?
I always wanted to start some sort of charitable organization, but when you're younger, obviously, most of the time you don't have something so personal.
Sure.
So I remember when my mom got diagnosed with, at the time, early onset Alzheimer's. She was 52. I had just turned 21. I was at UW in Seattle, and then my parents were in the Bay Area. And it was September. My parents called me and told me what was happening. And there's media stories on this. I've talked about it before, but I remember kind of slipping off my couch because it felt like the finality of that phone call like ended my life partially, at least how I knew it. And I remember I definitely went into a hole, and the only person I told at the time was my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time. And I was just so confused, and I remember maybe a couple of days went by. The strength and conditioning coach at Washington at the time pulled me into his office, and he was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You're not yourself." Because I was the guy who was always had energy, and at the time I was a junior going to be drafted, so I kind of like took a leadership position on the team. And that's when I that was the first person I told other than Brianna. And I remember he came to me and was like, we should do something about it. So we ended up holding it was a deadlifting competition where we invited like all these power lifters in the area to come in. And we charged like $5 to get in, $20 to lift in the competition. I mean, maybe we had like 30 lifters, maybe like 150 people came. Mostly the whole team came. And that was, my mom was very hesitant for people to know, because she was a big time producer in Hollywood. She was the president of NBC Pictures. She made Hallmark movies, helped start Law and Order. So, like, this, from the outset, is a very powerful woman. And had it together. And I convinced her to come to that event, and I think she saw that people would embrace her rather than turn their back on her or think that, oh, this is, ew, she's sick. Like, it just doesn't work like that. People want to rally around you. So that was the first event we held. Not only did it show me that if I have a platform, I can use it for good, especially in this Alzheimer's community, but then also too, my mom will embrace her sickness and let people support her. And so that's where it started. And then there was our sports information director at Washington. His name is Brian Tom. I give him all the credit in the world because without him, we would not be here now. And he basically shot the story to everybody: ESPN, Baseball America, King 5, Fox. I mean, you name it. He sent the story, and I mean, within 2 weeks, I was on ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Baseball America, telling the story. And we partnered then with the Alzheimer's Association, which is the national foundation for Alzheimer's, and then split off after I got drafted by Seattle, which helped a lot as well because the story didn't have to be retold.
Sure.
Um, and so then I got drafted. That helped elevate the story. The platform grew. I went to the Arizona Fall League, got put on the 40-man roster, made it to the big leagues, and now, we're holding a cornhole tournament charity event in downtown Seattle in July of 2019. Had a top golf tournament. We raised $85,000 in 2019. And then obviously COVID makes events in person a little tough. So we definitely shifted our focus, started making a documentary because I thought what better way to honor a filmmaker than make a film.
Right.
And I would say since COVID hit, we've almost gone bankrupt like 3 times. We've gone through 2 executive directors, and you kind of learn that the philanthropy space isn't so philanthropic all the time. But there have been crazy challenges and, amazing people that we've met to now. I think we sit in a place where I feel pretty comfortable that we can actually like help people. We sponsored a family in San Diego who actually he got Alzheimer's at 47, which is extremely early, like less than 1%. And he's got 4 kids under the age of 10. He coached my wife when she played basketball at Washington. And so, again, powerful individual, got it together, big time recruiter, big time coach, gets Alzheimer's, life's over. And again, like I said, there's like a finality to it. And his wife reached out and we were able to raise $130,000 for them, because Alzheimer's at that young, like you don't get Social Security, you don't get Medicare, you don't get any benefits. And so just like be that support system for them, like that's kind of see where we are now and where I want to go is like we're going directly into houses, like we're sitting on your couch, we're crying with you. Like we're not some like big, like let's accept money from pharmaceutical companies and like give you some miracle drug, because that's not how Alzheimer's works. It's way too complex. Like the brain's way too complex. So that's where I want to be, is like giving these grants away, helping families directly, but then at the same time, like educating people my age that like what you do to your body and how you treat it now is going to affect you when you're 40 and 50. So like, don't put it off. Like it's going to be too late. And I see that with people like my mom and like Coach Kevin, who are getting at 47 and 52. Like those are life decisions that are made well before 47 and 52. So that's where we're at now. Long-winded answer.
Hey, but compelling, Braden, because really what's remarkable is you're faced with this incredible tragedy and this, as you said, this kind of life-altering information. And you're a junior. You're just about to get drafted. You're just about to experience this incredible part of your life, and you're struck with this. And I think it resonates with people about how you engaged in that, still lived your life, and then out of the tragedy spawned this charitable desire that you have, and it's become something super meaningful and interesting. If it really speaks to your resilience. And so you've said a few things that I'm sure our listeners are like, well, wait a minute. He did that in college. He struck with something and really bounced back. He struck with this shift in baseball that you talked about with in terms of competition and your attitude. How have you found that you build your resilience? That is something that all of us, irrespective of where we serve, we need when those things hit us, the nudges awareness or tragedies and darkness. What is your practice for building the consciousness and then the awareness and the capacity to bounce back?
I mean, I think one, I see my life as like this seek and find mission. Like I'm like constantly,
Huh.
I just like feel like if I'm not seeking to try and find something to make myself grow or be better, like I'm doing myself, my family, my friends a disservice because I'm not giving them the best me. Um, but I would say that I've got to a point where I seek uncomfortable shit. Like I just like whether it
Very
be,
Christian human of you. Yeah.
and I mean, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, because okay, for me, I get this gut feeling like I don't want to do something. You know, whether it's like a phone call to the network, and I'm like, I don't really want to be on the phone. Like, I don't know this person at all. What if there's awkward pauses? Like the minute I get that gut feeling, I'm like, I'm doing it. You know, if like I got like a little recovery studio where I have like an ice, you know, one of those cold plunge ice barrel
Very Wim
things.
Hof of you.
Very Wim Hof. Yep, exactly. And when you know when I wake up at 6 and it's 38 degrees,
Yeah.
I'm like the last thing I want to do is get in that, and I'm like I'm getting in it. You know, I'll do sauna at night and it's 140 degrees. And after 12 minutes, I'm like, I need to get out. I'll just stay in. Like, I just feel like I get to that place mentally
Yeah.
where my mind tells me to do something. And I almost just am like, okay, I'm like 40% of the way of my full capacity. So I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
And just like viewing it that way mentally totally changed everything. My relationships, how I communicate, how I see growth. You know, like I said, like where my mind tells me I can go, if I see it as that's only like 40 or 50% of what I have, like I push myself and realize like, oh, if I would have stopped, who would I have been, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's how I would answer that.
Wow. It's a remarkable what you're talking about with discomfort. Notice it, don't get carried away in it, and drive on. That is a serious leadership lesson, bunny filling.
Big
Right,
time.
Kristen?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And so just in that same topic area, you posted something on Instagram that it's just struck me. It was so profound, and it was a tribute on Mother's Day to your mother. And you said, "There's a time that I remember when I did not know pain, when I believed in forever and everything would stay the same." Say more about that, and that's the time of your life where you didn't see this tragedy that it was going to be on your journey to, arguably one of the most important people in your life, and you didn't know that that pain was around the corner. How has this changed you as a human being now that you know and feel this intense pain of loss and suffering? How are you, and have you dealt with that? But how has that changed you from that moment before you knew what it was like?
Yeah, man, I mean, I definitely got chills just thinking about that moment on my couch. You know, so it's like you're talking about like minutes of like my life was this way and now it's this way, like that. And you know, it happens to people in different ways. Um, in my case, it was kind of a more drawn out process of losing somebody. Um, and you lose them. For me, I lost her twice. I
Mhm.
lost her mentally, then I lost her physically. And I've said before, like, I learned to, well, first, when you're younger, you know, you don't think bad things are going to happen. You really don't even
Mhm.
think about, all I'm worried about is like, who am I going to cross up on the basketball court, you know, this afternoon after school. Um, and so you don't think about like the severity and life. And so that moment on my couch, you know, I realized that like bad things are going to happen, and some are going to be, you know, health related like that, you know, some are going to be work related, you know, some are going to be super personal. uh but I I know that now, if I could give myself at that moment any piece of advice, it'd be like embrace the pain, because not only is it going to make you stronger, but it's going to make your circle stronger, and it's going to make you a better human being. And on this journey of growth that I'm on, like, I just want to be the best human I could be. And I felt like um, losing my mom like broke my soul in a way, but also she gave me the tools to rebuild it. And I see that now, and I'm a better man for that. And I give her the credit. So like with this tragic loss came just like profound finding of myself, which then has made me stronger, my family stronger, and I think like she would be proud of that, which
No doubt.
definitely
Oh,
lets me sleep better at night.
what a
No
beautiful tribute. Yeah, what a beautiful tribute. There is no doubt in my mind that she is looking down with and beaming with absolute pride at the man that you are. So thank you for that. Oh, and I see Ted has manifested.
Can I say something before we get to Ted? Because really, on this space, no doubt your mom not only is proud of you and was proud of you as a man, and really built and part of who you are. You've said a couple things. You get the gut that you don't want to do it, so that means you do it. You're in discomfort, so you push on. And you said something so profound. And we're recording this on a day that's the anniversary of my mom's passing, and so it's a super resonant thing. Is embrace the pain.
Hmm.
You're telling folks listening to this podcast, Braden Bishop, that don't avoid the pain. Don't numb it. You're telling them to embrace it, to notice it, and to build this resilience within themselves. And that is a remarkable thing that you're saying. And I don't want it to be lost. I just really, I think we all have mad respect for that, because that is an approach that has really built the man that you are and how you show up in this world. And I just want to just really underscore that for folks that are listening. It's remarkable.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah. And part of that is it's so interesting because so much of what we're talking about, embarrassment is pain. Going back to
Mhm.
even the getting on the rink, that's
Mhm.
pain. And so you will kind of engage in your life with being a dad, being an influencer, is to get people to notice that pain and to work through it. It's going to be very interesting to witness you throughout the years. So you know what this means, Braden? It means that Ted is up on the screen, and Ted has a question for you.
Hit me.
Well, as a former television sports reporter, I've got sporty questions to ask, and I think it will tie in, though. Wikipedia says that you are a free agent. I'll
Mm-hmm.
ask you directly. Is Wikipedia right?
Yeah, it's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in your mind, you're 29 years old. In your mind, where are you at in your career right now? And then how motivated are you to continue? Because the shelf life of a professional athlete is so much shorter than the professional lives of the rest of us. And so you only get one chance to do it. And then how motivated are you to continue? Because being an athlete gives you a greater platform to do all these things you're doing for the foundation.
Definitely. Well, I'll tell you, baseball's not getting any older. They're only getting younger. So, and I think that's with every sport. So, I mean, the way I look at it is making it to the major leagues was probably one of the hardest things I'll ever have to do. I mean, you can't even fill a full baseball stadium, which I don't know, average attendance probably 35,000 people. Can't even fill a full stadium with how many people have played in the major leagues in the history of baseball. So we're talking like
Wow.
Babe Ruth, there's less than 35,000 of us. So the the club in the major leagues is very, very small. And I take a tremendous pride in that I got there. And my work got me there, and my intentions got me there. So if I were to not receive a call, I would have no regrets. I fill my bucket every day. I invested in myself, and physically, I know I'm probably in the best shape of my life, physically and mentally. Um, and I know I have more to offer. But at the same time, having this charity, and like you said, being a Major League Baseball player affords you so many more opportunities in the charity and philanthropy space, because for some reason, I mean, I don't like it, but people are more inclined to come to your event when it's Major League Baseball player Braden Bishop rather than account manager Braden Bishop. You know, that's just the way it
Sorry,
is, and
account
I don't.
managers.
And I don't like it. I don't like that, but that's just the way it is. That's the
It's
reality of
reality.
it. But at the same time, being in that space, I see what like truly serving people looks like, and that fills my soul more than hitting home runs and robbing home runs. So whatever is next, whether that's another 5 years or that's it, like I know that I have something that's going to drive me, and that's serving people. And I'm ready for whatever that is in whatever capacity. But I'm an athlete at heart, so I don't think I'll ever be ready to give up.
But right back to what you led with was your why. This has evolved into your why. And so if this were to go away, then you're left with such a greater purpose in life. And so this was the path that you were supposed to be on. And it's just been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Tell our audience how they can help the foundation for Mom. What can they do? I know that you've got a coffee company. Is that how we do it? We buy coffee, because I'm all about that. I will do that right now. But how can people support?
Yeah, I mean that's one way. I'd say going to our website, formom.org. So it's the number 4mom.org. It has everything about our story, to where you can buy merchandise, to just a straight donation link, all the information on our events, which usually we do 4 big ones spanning from Arizona to um, the Bay Area. And coffee is another one, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
$1 from every purchase goes back to the charity. And coffee is good for the brain. So
Yes, it is.
that's always a way. But then following us on our social medias, For Mom Charity on Instagram, and then formom_ALZ on Twitter. Post everything from current events to past events to merch drops like this hat. That's probably the easiest way to keep up with us.
It's
Perfect.
very cool. Braden Bishop, well, there's no doubt that you have a very solid bunny. I know you know the metaphor of the package that everybody looks at that looks perfect, and the chocolate bunny at Easter, and you unwrap it and snap off an ear. I snap off an ear. Kristen bites the butt. She's a total butt biter. She looks innocent, but she's a butt biter.
Butt
And
biter.
it's hollow. And so we've used it as a metaphor for leadership. So tell us, what is it safe to say that serving people is what fills your bunny?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, like for me, I view it as like my soul. And I want to do whatever is gonna, fulfill my soul, make me feel like, I'm fulfilled. And I would say that I didn't never understood why my mom and dad used to be so on like family, family, family. Because when you're a kid, it's me, me, me.
Mm-hmm.
But then once I had a kid of my own and like a wife of my own, you realize like family is everything, and like you're gonna do everything you can, to protect that, and you're gonna make your decisions based on their feelings on certain things. So I would say that's one, family. I would say my faith is two, and just how you know, it obviously isn't the same for everybody, but I do believe that like my relationship with God really helps me navigate things, especially pain and suffering. And then the last one that would complete the bunny would probably be just like straight wellness, like taking care of
Mm,
yourself, when that's like
Sure.
mentally, physically. You said earlier, um, like getting to a place where I like truly love myself, and that's not in like a weird way, but just like radical self-love, like changed
mm,
everything. How I interacted with people, how I viewed failure. Like it wasn't
Sure.
so like, we've all seen those people who freak out when they fail and get mad at themselves. Like everybody doesn't do it. And to just like see those moments differently has helped me grow. So I would say that, like, family, my faith, and then that wellness, personal wellness
Ooh,
component.
mm.
wow. Well, thank you. I mean, the hype in baseball is real. The hype around you as a human being, in which you are a bright light in this world, Braden Bishop. You're not only a fierce competitor on the ball field and fast as hell, by the way, with great hands. Uh, you are a remarkable soul and a bright light, really doing some incredible work on this earth. This has been a delight for me. And Kristen, why don't we wrap
Wow.
this thing? Give
Yeah.
Braden Bishop to all the Hollow Bunny listeners.
Oh man, Braden, thank you so much for being a guest. And just the last thing that you said also really struck me as well, is that, when your dad told you, hey, family's so important, and you don't get it, and when people say, pain, there's going to come a time in your life where you're going to feel intense pain, and you don't get it until you get it. And it's one of those things that we can tell people, but you have to experience it for yourself. And, that, but it's a difficult lesson to try to impose upon someone until they're ready to receive it, or until, they feel it. So, thank you for that reminder as well. So I just wanted to thank you for joining us today. I've learned so much. I may even go to a baseball game now. So
Do it.
maybe,
Go do
yeah.
that after you go to formom.org.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
will do that first. I will do
Yeah.
that first, and then I might go to a sporty ball game and cheer really loud. Yeah, with like bullhorns.
baseball.
So, yes. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you, bunnies, all of our listeners. We appreciate you joining us on this podcast. This podcast is produced by Ted Madden, and the song you're about to hear is written and performed exclusively for the Hollow Bunny by my son Jake and his friends Zoe and Fabian. If you like the podcast, subscribe. If you don't, just keep moving. Nothing more to see here. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
When you look inside, what do you find? Are you content to fall behind? When you lose your way and you falter, why have courage and get ready to fight the hollow bunny? When the way ahead is covered in smoke and you're tired and scared and you're losing hope, you'll open your heart and your eyes and see a challenge and a question. Why not me? To fight the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but if you're brave and kind, you'll be alright. If you fight the hollow bunny. When the challenge ahead scares you to death, you tame the imposter inside instead. To change the world, you've got to start small. It takes a leader to say, I don't know it all, and I know I'm gonna fall, but I'll pick it up and come back stronger, failing forward and moving onward, doing the hard thing and the right thing, forever fighting the hollow bunny. And we all feel hollow sometimes, but the monsters are only in your mind. It's a tough pill to swallow, but outside but empty within. Something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. You're tough on the outside but empty within. Something's gonna crack, you've gotta start again. The monster